Hi, and welcome along, Gers TV, a wee aftermatch chat regarding Heart of Midlothian 2, Rangers 1. I've got Lewis beside me here and Mark Dingwall from Follow. How are we doing, Mark?
Not too bad, chaps, not too bad.
You enjoying your dinner there as we're speaking?
Indeed, looking forward to Christmas when I can empty my sacks.
Quite right. How's things, Lewis?
I'm not too bad. Obviously, a disappointing result today. I was working, we were very, very busy today, but, I was just glad to get the shift over. And, I came up here, just wasn't planning on coming up, but you know what? I came up and, doing a wee show for the followers and the subscribers at Gers TV.
Mark, you do Follow website. It's a massive fans forum, 100,000 people on it. What's the reaction been like so far today?
I think people are a wee bit kind of beaten down with this season. They're not really blaming Danny Rowe because it's not really his team. I think the feeling, you do get a few nutters ranting and raving, but I think the fact that Andrew Kavanagh and his board made the move to remove Russell Martin, to remove Thelwell, has kind of has bought them time.
Yeah.
What I was going to say to you was a situation we're in. If you think about the guys we signed in the summer, what was it, 8 of them?
Mm-hmm.
Some in loans and whatnot. And, I think like most people, you tend to want to be positive and believe the best. I thought, well, some of these guys have been not too bad in fits and starts, and maybe there's a team in there, and maybe, a different coach that doesn't have such crazy team selections, doesn't have such mad tactics. We'll get it, we'll get something out of them. And then I was actually sitting in the press room after the Hibs game, waiting for the manager to come in. And the thought went across my head, which was, maybe they're all pish. And I think that's the kind of problem is you're going, how many of these guys are in loan? Can we shift them? Do we have break clauses? Let's, it's a bad thing. Maybe it's a bad time. Maybe it's the wrong club at the wrong time for some of these guys. But we need to get a lot of them shifted. And we need to get some emergency surgery done to see us to the end of the season. We've had a fairly lucky season, if I think we can all agree in that, if you'd said we'd be where we are, 3-4 weeks ago, you just snapped our hands off to take it. I mean, obviously today's game was not great, not a great result, but all things considered, this season, we're within touching distance. Strangely.
Yeah. And in terms of the reaction for the support today, are they're blaming the players, I take it then?
I don't think there's many people, although there have been a couple of threads kind of saying, is Rowe the guy to see us through and whatever. At some point, that kind of lunacy has to stop.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the number of managers we've had since 2012, effectively, how many have we had in the last few years? How many have we had since Gerrard? Nobody's really been given a huge amount of time to build a team. And it's been driven by hysteria. It's been driven by the very natural frustration of the money that's been spent. Well over £100 million has come in from the shareholders, plus the usual money that you get from season tickets, hospitality, merchandise sales, strip sales. A lot of money and not a lot of return, for the Scottish League. So, I think people are very jaundiced, very frustrated, and in a lot of cases, very angry.
I mean, I think that if we're being fair with this, if we're going to judge Danny Rowe, I think we need to judge him next season, because he's only going to have 1 month in January. It's a really hard window to bring players into. Even then, he's 12 points behind Hearts at this point, or maybe more by the time it happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're realistic. If we're going to be fair on him, we'll have to wait to the summer window. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on that, Liz?
I wouldn't. I'm not trying to blame the manager here, but some of his tactical approaches and his substitutions have been a bit questionable, especially in the Old Firm in the League Cup semi-final as well. It was a bit questionable substitutions that he brought on, considering when we were 1 each or 2-1 down in extra time. And in the day as well, I still don't know what season Diamante and even Max Aaron's got. I don't know what season him. And when we're needing players to come on and hopefully fight back, get a bit of a result, we've nobody in the bench who can do that. When we bring on Managerial and Asgard, these players are not going to get you a result in these type of games where they're 2-0, 2-1 down. These players don't have the grit for that. Your Asgard, very good technically, right? But he's not got the physical ability. He's no technical. Oh, I know he is technical, but he's no one of those players who's going to get right in amongst it. He's going to get the ball. He's going to do a wee trick or two, play a nice wee ball.
But I think that's the problem. I think Danny Rowe knows exactly what Mark said there. He knows how pissed they are.
Mm-hmm.
And he's probably similar to what we're saying now. What does he do about it? Because that's the squad he's got. The ones that are injured are injured.
I think it's an absolute miracle that it's taken his 9th league game to actually lose.
Aye, but it was.
With that set of players.
There's been a few games we're lucky with the Hibs game with the penalty in the last minute.
Aye.
Can I say a wee thing, Simon? Lewis, I think because you've got your microphone down low and you're moving your head, you're
there we go. Is that better for you? Is that better for you, Matt?
It was coming in and out. It was coming in and out. You know.
Right. Okay, man. Apologies.
I was hanging on every word, I must say.
Aye. So, what do you think's going to happen in January, Mark? But in terms of they have to get players out, obviously. But what do you think's going to happen? Who do you think they'll target for coming in?
I'm absolutely convinced that they'll be looking at their budgets, looking at the headroom that they've got, financially for, under the
fair play rule.
Fair play rules to get as many in as they can. As I said, I think the majority of the players that came in the summer, if they can possibly shift them, they will shift them. If you remember back to the manager a couple of weeks ago talking about his traffic light system with the greens, the ambers, and the reds, and I think he's been pretty fair to most of those players. I think, the ones that have been fit have been given a chance to come in, either starting or on the bench. Also, I think in terms of Danny Rowe himself and his staff, this has been quite a challenge with, the normal injury suspensions, but also with the type of players he's got, the ability to change formation to try to suit who they're playing and also who's available on the day. I think it's actually been quite a sophisticated approach that he's brought in tactically, is that, he'll look at who he's playing, and then during the match they'll actually change formation to take account of people, either the pressure they're under or the substitutions. So I've been quite impressed with Danny Rowe. But we have to concede it's not his team. You can say that about every manager because, nothing's perfect in football. But, he didn't have these guys. He didn't choose them. He didn't have them pre-season. And he's inherited a situation where I don't think many people are going to blame him. However, the atmosphere at Ibrox has developed into a fairly toxic place where what was normally quite a supportive atmosphere, people are prepared to lose their minds over, losing a goal, over missing chances, over a bad display. I mean, in my lifetime, who would have thought that you would actually have seen, as we have seen in recent years, a Rangers team been booed off against Celtic at half-time? I mean, just unthinkable. But it's happened, and that's where we are with the crowd just now and their lack of belief in the players.
Yep. The other thing I would say about today, because I do have some doubts as well about Danny Rowe, but I do think we need to keep in. The manager needs to stay for at least a year, 2 years, and it needs to be a project when he gets a proper opportunity. But the other thing that we need to remember today is his team that he was up against, Hearts, in my opinion, are a better squad than now. and they've got a really good manager, and he can't change that team until January. So I'm looking at it. He's playing against a Hearts team that's the strongest Hearts team in a long, long time, who are full of confidence. So he's under pressure there as well.
What I would say about that is in our lifetimes, there's usually been, whether it's Hearts or Hibs or Aberdeen or Dundee United, perm anyone from those 4 teams, there's usually one team starts the season pretty well and can they split the old firm and whatever. This is the time of year when it gets difficult for them because they traditionally don't have the squads.
Yeah.
This is a time when injuries and suspensions start to kick in. It's when, they've got a good starting 11, but what's their bench like? And this is when it starts to take the toll. This year, obviously, Hearts have won a bit of a watch with the Rangers have been in, and then the collapse I think most of us find highly amusing, collapse of Celtic. But whether that'll last, because at the end of the day, whilst we might be having a giggle just now, Celtic have got a very expensively assembled squad. I don't think they're anywhere near as bad as people make them out to be. I think that, they're probably coach can get a decent tune out of them. And he should be, because the amount of money they've spent to assemble those guys it's pretty large in almost any parameters that you wish to measure it by. And you get people saying, "Oh, they don't have a proper guy for this position, that position." Come on, let's get serious here. Every player can play a couple of positions, and you should be able to see over any injuries that way. So I think for those of us who, if you're kind of resigned to the fact that Rangers have had the season that they've had, do we expect to win the league after Russell Martin? No, we don't. But we've ended up in a situation where within reasonable touching distance still are the leaders, and obviously Motherwell have come in, and Celtic are there. But it's got everything, absolutely everything to play for. So let's accept it for what it is and try and make the most of it.
Lewis.
Yeah, well, I mean, going back to the comment there, when you were talking about Hearts, with how they've probably got a better squad than us, I think they do. I think they've recruited better in the summer. They've not went for any sort of big or well-known names. They've signed a few decent players in their own respective leagues, like Claudio Braga, that Kizaridis as well, that's on the opposite flank. But someone who's a bit more well-known in Scottish football is Stuart Finlay as well, ex-Kilmarnock player and Celtic youth as well. Solid centre-half for Kilmarnock, ended up going down south to, I believe it was Oxford United. I believe he went to America as well, and then he came back to Scotland, obviously joining Hearts. I believe he's only there on loan, but obviously he scored the first goal of the day for Hearts. I think one of our problems is we don't seem to necessarily be struggling scoring from set pieces, but the fact that we can't defend them. We're really, really struggling to defend them. And of course, we scored from a set piece today. Obviously, it got disallowed, which is debatable whether it should have been or not. With photos or videos coming out, etc. But we were struggling from situations like this, and we're saying it after pretty much every game when we concede a goal. It's schoolboy errors from defences.
I mean, see if you look at the defence now. My preferred combination for defending for free kicks is that you've got a kind of mixed thing between the zonal and the man-on-man. So front post, back post, somebody in the centre, and then the rest of the players match up either against the most dangerous players or the tallest players. And, so it's a bit of a hybrid. But we're continually losing goals this way, And some of the games that we've won by the odd goal, or however we've won it, it hasn't really been an entertaining game to watch. I mean, there's very few easily won games that we've indulged in this year. And that is a worry because, I was talking to somebody the other week and I said, I'm pining for the days, kind of Goffy style days where you go 2 or 3-0 up, you've got 20 minutes to play, and Goffey's kind of waving to the rest of the team. Nobody get injured, nobody doing that to get a card. And you just play the game out with that cushion. And we haven't really seen a Rangers team playing like that regularly for more than a few years now.
Aye, but I think we're a long way off that as well. Another concern when you're saying that, Mark, is the captain Tavernier came off. He's moving to different positions and his legs aren't there anymore. It's a matter of time before his captaincy's taken off and been replaced. I can't see anybody that would really be confident. Maybe Suter if he was back, but there's not really any leaders, like you said there. There's none in the team.
Well, the thing about Tav is, I mean, there's a lot of people wanted to put the knife into Tav because he's advanced in years and the performances have gone down. But I think people are forgetting that he has been a good leader. He has had a tremendous goal-scoring record, either from free play or particularly, obviously, from free kicks and penalties. So I'm one of these guys that likes to see heroes, and I think Tav, being here for the length of time he has in the modern era, being a leader in 55, I'd like to see him go with a bit of dignity rather than been chased out the door. That's my personal feeling. That I'm always thinking is, what's his overall contribution and how should he be remembered, in 5 or 10 or 50 years' time. But there is a point now where it's the 10 years and he ain't giving us the same service that he once did. And you don't say like he's an old cart horse, we'll take him around the back of the stables and finish him off, get him at the door. But every great Rangers team has had a great captain, and amongst the rest of that team, I think you're kind of struggling to find a natural replacement. Even some of the better players that we've got, Raskin today didn't impress. He has impressed over the piece, not been so great recently. Connor Barron, I like him. I got slaughtered a wee while ago when we played Manchester United because I kind of tipped him as a young guy to watch when I get interviewed by a Man United fanzine. But the problem with Connor Barron just now is that he's looking good in the Scottish Premiership, but he's not shown it. For instance, in Europe, he's not progressing as a player in the way that I think he should. Obviously, his size is a problem, but there are ways around that, to develop people physically, and he should be able to be displaying and giving more than I think he is.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually touch on when you were talking about Nico Raskin there. I seen a good point on social media actually shortly just before we went on live as well. And it was on Twitter, and it was someone that said, Raskin has been here almost 3 years. I think it'll be 3 years in January he'll have been here. Raskin has been here almost 3 years, and he's probably been good for about 6 months of it. Now, I'm not saying whether I fully agree or not with it, because he has shown in glimpses this season how good he can be. But I think it's fair to say he's definitely not been at the races this season. Of course, he's a Belgian international, but with performances like this and how the team's doing, he's not going to get called up for the Belgian national team, and he's not going to end up going to the World Cup. So we're saying all this. We are basically relying on Nico Raskin going to the World Cup and playing well over there in America and Canada, Mexico as well, etc. We're relying on him going to the World Cup, playing well, to hopefully get a few bob for him. But at this rate, with the way that Nico Raskin's performances have been of late, and even the team's performances, he's not even going to be going. He'd be lucky to go there.
Yep. The other thing is as well, I think if you ask the manager in private, well, I know you do the press conferences, Mark, but I think if you had a private conversation with him, he'd probably replace 99% of that team if he physically could.
Yeah, I think that's glaringly obvious, but he's also, if you look at where he's been, Bayern Munich, the German national team, he's obviously smart enough not to throw people under the bus publicly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what Russell Martin done.
Aye, it's not good for team morale. Morale doesn't make him look good, and it doesn't make the guy's exit easier. So that's not going to happen. But as I say, he has, to despite having a very pleasant demeanour when you meet him, he's obviously got that bit of steel, you know, and you can see that where you've got, you know, what do you call it? You know, coming back to his light stops, you know, the red, amber, and green. He's obviously put down a marker, which is, you know, each one of you guys is being looked at, and it's up to you. You know, start with a clean sheet with me. You're all going to be given time on the pitch, but you're going to be benchmarked against the best. And if you don't come up to scratch, then you go. So I don't think you can be fairer than that.
Aye, and he has gave them all a chance. But I mean, again, when I watched the team lineup today and I seen the bench, it's a whole squad. I just don't see a lot of. He's got a real problem here. He's inherited a full squad that needs. The summer's obviously been a problem. He's came into it. We've got rid of the problems now. We've got rid of the manager, Thelwell, Patrick Stewart, but he's still got the problem because he's left with it. And until he can get, I would estimate that he probably needs about 6 or 7 players, and I don't think he'll get that in January.
Yeah, I think to be honest, the way that the squads change these days, you know, you're probably going to have, you would normally have about, you know, between 6, 8, 10 people in the first team squad changing every year, possibly anyway. In terms of the money that we've got in European terms, especially now, you know, that England are coining in the money with TV, our finances don't really go that far in terms of, you know, being able to be a competitive European team, even at the Europa League level, as we've seen in the last couple of seasons. So he's got a tough time ahead of him. If you look at our team, I mean, it's United Nations, because that's the way the game is now. You know, is that people have got this freedom of movement, and you know, they can come and go, and so I'm sure that we will see a lot of movement over the summer. But I'm also convinced that we may see quite a number of people coming in, hopefully to freshen up the squad in January, because I think it's needed. Would I like to see them come in at the start of January rather than in the last day? Yes, I would. You know, because I think that gives you time to work with them and just to move people on, which is what we're desperately needing. You know. Do
you think he's got anybody? Do you think he's got players identified now then?
I'm absolutely convinced he will have. Yeah. Of course, once you get to the final week of this month, you will have clubs across Europe saying, right, who can we let go on loan? Who can we possibly sell? So I'm sure that his staff will be working on that. His staff will be working on it, and I'm sure that they'll be getting deluged with CVs from agents, you know, and it's now a matter of going through, hopefully, the stats or the records of people seeing them in matches and seeing what we can pull together. I mean, even for a normal Rangers squad player, you know, the amounts of money involved in their wages are also pretty eye-watering. So, you know, nobody's going to be spending that money without doing a fair amount of due diligence, but I'm sure that that's what they'll be doing. Again, if you look at the way that the chairman moved to remove Martin, Thelwell and Stewart, that takes a lot of bottle, you know, mid-season to, you know, to chop the manager, the chief executive and the director of football, or whatever other title he had. So I don't think he's been here for, you know, the amount of time he has without really having a think about it. As you know, we've put in 20 million and we're not even at the end of the first year of that investment, and it's all going south. Now, if you look at Rangers accounts and how things have been the last few years, I think they already were in their minds committed to another 20 million in this year. So I'm sure that there'll be, you know, he'll be on the people inside the club to say, right, let's get this sorted with the new Icelandic guy that's in to act as director of football. I'm sure he's had a few busy days at his desk since he was appointed the other week.
I'd like to hope so.
Aye, well, when you were talking there about the January transfer window, this is probably the biggest or one of the biggest January transfer windows we're actually going to have. Considering I don't want to say the title's out the window, but I said before the game today that whoever wins this game will win the league, will go on and win the league. And I think it's hard to look past Hearts. It's Hearts' league to lose, and we need to not rely on Hearts having a poor window, but we need to rely that we have that good of a window, because it's going to be tough to come back from 9 points, 12 points behind Hearts, whatever we are now. So, and I'm not saying that as soon as it hits January 1st, you're going to be bang, 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 announcing players are going to start. But realistically, we need at least one or two in for this game against Celtic, for this Old Firm, which is, of course, at the start of January. One of the biggest, probably the biggest Old Firm of the season so far. Especially away at Celtic Park, which is always going to be a bit of a test. But it's the structure in the team is not good enough. You're seeing different defences start week in, week out. You're seeing different formations. How are these players actually going to gel? How are these players going to be cohesive enough to go into a massive game away from home at Celtic Park? I
think that's the problem. I think that's the problem. I think the manager's doing that because he's no other option.
On Friday there, incidentally, it's nice to see you that we've been joined by Simon's new girlfriend. And on
That's
Friday...
not me, is it? That's not me, is it?
No, the one to your left. There's a spot of heavy petting going on there. And on Friday...
Is that what they call it now?
On Friday after the press conference, I bumped into Ronnie Esplin, the journalist who's also written a couple of books. And I said to Ronnie, I said, if you've got another book in you, Ronnie, how would you fancy starting to write about this crazy season? And he just rolled his eyes. He's like, wouldn't know where to start. Because it is such an unusual season. The fact that Hearts might be the first team outside the Old Firm in 40 years to win the title. Mm-hmm. I would say to be in the position to win the title is beyond the dreams of most Hearts fans. Although, to be fair to them, their season ticket sales were pretty good this year before a ball was kicked. So you've got a very unusual league. I don't think the quality of football from either of the teams or any of the three and now four teams with Motherwell has been particularly spectacular. But that's the league we're in. So you've got to make the most of it. And to be able to even now still be within touching distance, just hanging on there to get another goal. As Lewis said there, you come to the Celtic game, they're always big, aren't they? Whether there's a league title on the go or not. But suddenly, massive 6-pointer. And, whatever team wins, that gives them a boost, keeps them near the top, whatever. And so I think it's going to be all to play for. The number of twists and turns we've already seen in this season, and you're thinking to yourself, can we be as bad as we've been? Can Celtic be as bad as they've been? Can Hearts keep winning? I think we're going to see that almost to the end of the season. Certainly, things can go wrong, but I think until we come to the break, you'll probably see the three teams we've been mostly talking about will be in there fighting. I'm convinced of that. Because I think Celtic in many ways are a bit like us there. Although I do hold that they've got a bigger and individually better squad. They're brittle. They are brittle. Even under, with all the hallelujah stuff with Martin O'Neill, but I'm not sure there was huge numbers of convincing performances in that. Same as there haven't been too many convincing performances under Danny Rowe. We're more interested in what Rangers do, obviously. And the thing that I do like is, for betting, I've got this rule that, can't mind who it was, gave it to me years ago, was form takes time to develop and it takes time to lose. And what Danny Rowe has mostly done is to take us from a team that was losing into one that's winning most of the time. And some of those performances might not be the greatest, might not be the most spectacular, but we're winning, and that is worth $1 million, and so we're slowly starting to get there. Hopefully, if he gets some players that he really fancies coming into the team in January, that'll be a help, because I think when you see the team sheet sometimes coming in, you're going, what's he going to do with this? The players that he selected, maybe through injuries or whatnot, you're going, what systems are going to play to take advantage of these guys? Because in some positions it really is, down to the bare bones. However, there's various reasons for that ending up that way, but that is undoubtedly the case.
And in terms of he's obviously given us 2 games left, or 2 games before New Year, maybe 3 games. But
2 games.
Is it 2 games?
Your research is as good as mine, Si.
I'm just trying to remember. But what I was going to say was, what positives can you take out of the game of the day? I don't think it was many.
No, I mean, I think Tynecastle, because particularly since they built the new stand office at the main stand, it's become a lot more of a fortress. I mean, if you ever happen to be in the main stand at Tynecastle now, that kind of strange cantilever shape they've got really focuses the noise onto the ground, into the ground, and it's definitely an advantage for Hearts in some games, especially if they get ahead. So to have gone there and to have scored early, to have scored the goal late, not played particularly well, I think people will lick their wounds coming away from that and saying, right, what can we do better? So, if we'd been going there a month ago, I think people would have been expecting a bit of a scalping, to be honest, because of the way that Rangers were playing. Was there much to take from that game that gives you hope for the future? Not particularly. Not particularly. There weren't really great passages of play in that game to give you much hope for the future. You've just got to put that one behind us and move on to Motherwell at Ibrox on Sunday, which is, if you look at how they've been playing,
they're in form as well, don't they?
It isn't going to be an easy game, But then again, over the years, I mean, see if you look back to when Tommy McLean parked the bus when he was the Motherwell manager, there's been decades of games at Ibrox where, even coming up against the lower teams in the league, it can be a struggle simply because people come to Ibrox determined not to win, but not to be beaten. So that goes with the territory. So we have to focus on that. He's now got a full week to work with the team to get them ready for Saturday. So hopefully he pulls something out of the bag.
And a comment came in there. The only positive probably would be Shermiti scoring. It's no massive, but
it's a positive. I would say it's a miracle.
Well, I thought it was too late in the game, but I thought he'd done a really good run to get a goal, and it was quite a good goal.
I don't think it will.
But you knew the referee was going to blow the whistle as soon as he scored it.
I mean, at the end of the day, Shermiti didn't put the $8.5 million price tag on himself.
Yes.
No, I don't think there's anybody blames the boy for having that in his shoulders. I think the way he is, if he has a good few games and we can get him out the door, in January or at the end of the season, and just cut our losses with him, I think most people will be happy enough to see that, because he's really desperately handicapped, one by that number, and two by the fact that the guy that signed him had a long-term relationship with him. And it does look as though it was like somebody doing a favour for Everton to get them off their books and give them a few bob. That might be been very cruel, but I think that's how most people think about it.
It's probably true. The only thing that could possibly bail him out with that scenario is if they bought somebody for even more money. But I don't think they'll be bitten twice for that one.
No. I mean, I think one of my favourite ones to look at is managers always think that they can bring something out of a player that nobody else has seen before. That's part of their makeup. They think they see. And if you look back to, if you remember when we get pummeled with Juventus many years ago, one of their great players was Torricelli.
Oh, aye.
And, he was in that team with
Ravanelli.
The White Feather with
Del Piero.
Yeah, Del Piero. Was Baggio there as well? But was
Possibly
that
Vialli? I can't remember. But
Torricelli was a baker. When he was first seen, he was in Serie C, and Juventus signed him, and people thought that they were mad. And look at how he developed. So, that's one very famous, very big one. But then we've seen other scenarios where people have been plucked from lower leagues or from obscurity of the Bosnian third division or whatever, and hopefully we can uncover a few gems like that. Even if you're just talking about these days having somebody in the squad that can do a competent job, might not be a world beater, but at least you've got an alternative at left back, right back, centre mid, whatever. Whereas in some positions just now, if you look at that Rangers squad, you're not even thinking there's a starting 11 there. You're thinking the starting 11 is kind of cobbled together because we don't have cover in every position. That's the sad state of affairs that we're in just now.
Because I know Danny Rose said he doesn't mind changing formations and things like that, but I would imagine most managers will have a formation they want to play if they've got the right players. But again, I think he'll be scratching his head going, I haven't got the right players. He probably doesn't know the best formation for him. And the 5 at the back of the day was simply damage limitation.
For me, I think the fact that Danny Rowe is adapting to the players and not trying to basically force the players to adapt to him, unlike what Russell Martin was trying to do, is a bit of a positive. But the one main thing today was the fact that we sat back and let Hearts come for us, that we never went man to man with them, because the fact that we sat back, I think it's fair to say the Hearts' best attribute is going forward, considering the 3 players they've got in the front line. Of course, Lawrence Shankland and Claudio Braga both been first and second in the top goal scorers list this season as well. But the fact that we just sat back and let them come for us and let them play their football, so they're going for them, and the fact that we were playing counter-attacking football against a team like Hearts today, considering how Hearts set themselves up and the players that they've got in their team, the fact that we were playing counter-attacking football was baffling to me. It was confusing, and I think for me, I would have personally went with a 4-back. But it's one thing to sit here and say, "Oh, we should have done this," or "We shouldn't have done this" when we get beat, because we're not going to say that. I wouldn't have said, "Oh, we should have played a 4-back today" if we'd end up winning this game. I wouldn't be sitting back and saying that.
The only thing is that with that I would pick on that, and because I obviously agree with you, I spoke about it earlier on, but the thing I would pick on it is Hearts have got strikers that score goals. We've got strikers that don't score.
But the thing is here, right? I think if Lawrence Shankland was at Rangers, and I was saying this to you earlier on as well, I think if Shankland was at Rangers, he'd be having all the same problems that Miovski's having right now. Because when we were in the loop to sign Shankland, Miovski was one of the players that was in question, of course, when he was still at Aberdeen, because people seen him as the younger, the quicker, the overall better option. And I'm not going to say Shankland's a better player than Miovski. Of course, Shankland's having a better season than Miovski right now.
He's currently a better player.
Currently a better player, absolutely. And I think the main reason that we went for Miovski over Shankland is purely because he's younger. But we're not really seeing much from Miovski this season. When you look at his overall season at Rangers, he's not scored many goals for a centre forward, albeit he's not getting the service, and I don't think he's being played right under both Russell Martin and Danny Rowe. But the thing is, he was hitting a bit of form there against Kilmarnock, and I believe who else did they play? Ferric Varos as well in Europe. He was hitting a bit of form, scoring a few goals. But
I think in terms of the day, I would say the problem was that everything went through the middle. We hardly went through the wings.
That as well.
I think you've got to cut your cloth according to the players.
Yes,
one of my favourite games in recent years, and in fact it's gone back to 2019, was, if you remember, when we played Feyenoord at Ibrox. Ojo scored, it was 1-0.
1-0, yeah, I remember.
In that game, I thought it was an absolute masterclass. The formation changed. the way that the players were rotating in the game, shifting positions, to take advantage of things they saw or tactical changes they made. I watched that game from the Govan that night, and I just thought it was a wonderful game. Felt really privileged to be there just to see how we played. I mean, it was really absolutely top class. Do we have the squad now to play like that? I don't think so.
We don't.
I just don't think so. So therefore, Simon and I were talking about this a few weeks ago. If you've either played or coached at any kind of level, I mean, I'm talking like public park to, whatever. There's sometimes a coach has got to go out there and say, with the team I've got to kill this game. I've got to slow it down. I've got to time waste. Whether that's possession or, taking your times for throw-ins, whatever. Got to slow it down, frustrate the opposition, and then maybe take our chances. And I think that in some ways is where Danny Rowell is just now, that in certain games, he's looking at that team and going, I'd like to play one way, but if we play that way for 90 minutes, then we're going to get a hiding here, because do you really have say you're having a bet, would you bet in a correct score for Rangers and not give the opposition at least one goal?
No.
I probably wouldn't.
You wouldn't understand, but
another thing as well that I rate Derek McInnes for, because he did it in his days at Aberdeen. He's good at getting his players to force other teams, especially Rangers and Celtic, force them into making errors, because it gets the Rangers up. For example, today it gets the Rangers fans on the players' back, but also gets the Hearts fans excited, whether it's going away.
They hunted in packs and it worked.
Exactly, and whether it's a player making a poor touch, or the goalkeeper kicking the ball at a player, or the defender, or whatever, playing a stupid pass, it gets the opposition fans frustrated, and it gets your home fans, your team's fans, on your side, and it gets them on the opposition players' backs. So that's something Derek McInnes did at Aberdeen as well, especially when his Aberdeen teams came to Ibrox. I think we've seen it more at Rangers when he came to Ibrox than what he did when he went to Celtic Park. But
it's a good point, and it's also the point that he's a good manager in general. But
a lot of managers are good at that as well, and we're seeing that in a lot of games, particularly
Gerrard
even your focus. Gerrard did that against other teams as well, but when other managers are coming to us, they're basically saying force them into errors and get the fans on their back, especially when they come to Ibrox.
That leads me to my next point I'm going to make is, as much as anybody that wants to criticise Danny Rowell, again, two mistakes in the space of 5 minutes puts us 2-0 down, and it's two silly mistakes. There's no lot you can do if you've trained them all week and they give a ball away like Jack Butland did with the first one, and then poor marking. In the space of 5 minutes, concentration, the heat's been done. And I don't think we're ever coming back for it when the second goal went in.
A point that I want to make quickly here, and I'm not saying that Jack Butland's not good enough, but I don't know if that'll split opinions with used to or with other fans that are watching.
He's not as good as he thinks he is.
I would agree in that, but the thing is, I do like Jack Butland as a keeper, and I've liked so far his time at Rangers, because I think there's been more good than bad. But I think what else is Liam Kelly doing now to get a chance? What else can he do to get himself that chance? Because I think it's more than deserved. Because we know that Jack Butland is a good keeper on his day, but he's got a massive mistake in him, and it's happening far too often now. Whether it's when he's distributing the ball, whether it's giving it straight back to the other player, whether it's him getting beat at his near post, or possibly whether a ball's hit at him and he's parring it straight into the opposition's feet or head or whatever you want to say. But he's got a mistake in him. Liam Kelly, I think, now deserves a chance. In the next two games, Motherwell and St Mirren, both at home, both games that we should be winning, although at this rate, I don't quite know if we will be. But games that we should be winning, I think Liam Kelly absolutely more than deserves a chance now.
I know, I can't disagree with it, for the simple fact that it was two terrible goals to lose.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time. I mean, I like Jack Butland, and as you say, most of his career with us has been good.
Yep.
But those mistakes that he's been making are starting to reoccur on a much too regular basis. He's also a bit of a leader. He's somebody that the club regularly puts up in the media because they know he's going to be a calm head and say the right kind of things.
He speaks well.
He does indeed. But there comes a point where you just say, this is costing us games, Jack.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
you need to get back in that training ground and prove to me that you're better than Liam Kelly.
Yeah. And
You
I
know?
think if you make the point that Jack Butland's a leader, so is Liam Kelly. Liam Kelly was the captain of Motherwell for at least a year or two as well.
Aye.
So, and I think I don't quite think Liam Kelly's good enough to be your solid number one option for Rangers, but he's reliable and he's a more than solid option as a
Well,
backup goalkeeper.
the other argument you've got for that is every other area in the park, if somebody's no pulled their weight, Danny Rose changed it and gave other players a chance. The only place he's not done that was a goalkeeper. So I can't disagree with it, to be fair.
The thing I like about Kelly is he's been with the club for a long time. Obviously, he's been and gone sort of thing, if you know what I mean. But he was with us for a long time, and whenever he speaks, he's always saying, as a supporter of the club, you know, I'm proud to be here, and that gives you something that, you know, we haven't had from too many players in a long time. And people can say maybe that doesn't matter. I think it does.
Yeah,
you know,
I think it's. Sorry to interrupt you there. I think it certainly does matter that we've got players in there who have supported the club, who know what it is about, who know what it's all about. But we've seen players come from, whether it's abroad or come from down south, who come in and they do just get the club. And one of those players is Dujon Stelling. I'll come on to him shortly. But Liam Kelly spent 10 years with us, including his youth academy days, until the day that he left us for Livingston. He spent 10 years with the club, of course, growing up and supporting the club as a boy. So in that 10 years, he's seen the club go down into the lower divisions, go into the third division and make their way back up into the... I think it was when we were in the Championship, he eventually left us to go to Livingston, which he was the number one there for at least 2 or 3 years, then ended up going to Motherwell and also being the number one there. So he's certainly a solid backup, and he's very reliable as well. Obviously, as you were saying, he's a supporter of the club, and it's something that we've been missing for years. But I certainly think we need a more... I just don't think there's enough players in there that do get it, and we've made this argument as well previously before, and I think it's easy to say, but it's true. There's nothing else you can really say. There is not really many. There's probably 1 or 2, maybe 3 players you can pick out of that massive squad that we've got, right? Quite a big squad that we've got. It's 25 to 30 players we've got in that squad. There's probably 1, 2, maybe 3 players in there that actually get Rangers.
Yeah. But ultimately, the reason we were beat was Hearts were technically better than us at all areas of the park.
Of course they were. Of course.
That's how I feel.
I think, I mean, I've said it on the channel previously, plenty of times that I don't think Hearts have the bottle to go on and win this league, but I'd probably go back and maybe disagree with myself there. I would say they played both Celtic and Rangers twice, home and away at Celtic Park and Ibrox and Tynecastle twice as well, and they've dominated them. On and off the ball, they've dominated them, whether they deserve the win at Ibrox or not. The fact that their 2 goals probably shouldn't have stood and Rangers' goal should have stood.
I would say that
Rangers and Celtic.
I would say if Hearts are to lose the league, they'll lose it through draws.
For me, it's Hearts to lose now. I don't think it's anyone's to win. It's now just Hearts to lose.
They don't need to lose games, but I think they could, if they were to lose it would be through draws. Maybe a couple of draws coming up.
Possibly. But I don't see that happening with Hearts, because we've seen a wee run there maybe a couple of weeks ago where they were drawing where they were drawing for a couple of games in a row, and obviously they got beat at Pittodrie off of Aberdeen. And we all thought maybe they would go downhill from there, but they've had a couple of good results over the last few weeks. Of course, beating Celtic at Parkhead, they beat Falkirk away from home as well, and beating, I believe it was Kilmarnock, not Kilmarnock, because they drew at Kilmarnock. They beat somebody at home, then of course beating Rangers now at Tynecastle. They're back on it now. I don't see them going in that sort of run, especially not under a manager like Derek McInnes.
Aye, I mean, I agree with that.
Way to go. You know, there is a long way to go.
Yeah, of course there is.
If you've got that set of results underneath you, and you've got that lead that they have, that gives you enormous confidence. Because you know you can just keep saying to one, let's go back again. You know, it's winning is a good habit, and as I said earlier about my gambling, takes time to develop, takes time to lose. You know,
yes.
And if you're top of the league, well, for one thing, you're not going to be bottom 6 as a minimum, and it then becomes, can they deal with that pressure? You know, Rangers and Celtic players very quickly realise that it's different, you know, that you've got to win every week. Do Hearts over the last 40 years, have they got that same mentality born and bred into their club? I don't think they have. But there's always time to make history. And if they make history, fair play to them. You know, they've done it in the circumstances and found themselves in with the players that they found. So, you know, I'm all for the next few months having a great competition to see if we can pull them back. You know, that's what I keep about. It's certainly a lot better than worrying that you've got a crank like Russell Martin in charge of your club.
No, very true. I think we're going to wrap up with that. Happy with that, guys?
I think we've safe to say. I mean, we've been live for about 50 minutes and decent numbers, albeit
apart from getting rid of 25 players, what else do you want to talk about?
I mean, considering the fact that it was a live show that was quite last minute, we never advertised it on Facebook. It's good numbers tonight, so thanks very much to everyone who's been watching, whether it's via YouTube or Instagram or Twitter. Thank you all very much for your comments as well, for your contributions. It doesn't go unnoticed whether it's put up on the screen or not. We see them all. We see all the comments here. We've got them up the telly. So, and there's still some coming in here. So I want to thank you all very much for watching. I also want to thank Mark as well, who's a regular guest in the show, but obviously not every week. But thank you, Mark, for coming on tonight.
Cheating
is
disappointing
result, but good chat as well from the two of you guys. And I mean, whether it's been good chat from me, I don't know, but good chat from you.
No, it's been good. It's been good. We've dissected it the best we can. All right, guys, have a good night.
All the best.
Good night. All the best.